Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. I am Dr. Amanda. And if you are over 40 and you feel like weight loss has suddenly become harder, you are not imagining it, right? So, for those who don't know, I recently had a birthday and I'm a proud 47-year-old. And let me tell you, weight loss is not easy, especially, like I said, after you turn 40. But I hear many people say the same thing. They're like, Dr. Amanda, what I've been doing used to work because I'm eating the same way as I always have. I'm exercising, but the scale is not moving. What is going on? Or maybe they may say something like, um, I'm eating less and I'm still gaining weight. Like, what in the world? Like, I've done less and it is not even working. What is going on? And I know even in my own journey that experience can seem so frustrating, so confusing, so discouraging. And it can even feel like your body is somewhat betraying you. And you're like, but this is what happens and what you need to understand right at the beginning, right? If you are doing what you used to do, what you used to know that have worked, and it doesn't work anymore, there's a reason. It's not because your body all of a sudden became lazy. You're not having less willpower. And you didn't forget to just suddenly take care of yourself. What changed, of course, is our biology, right? We're getting older. Our human body is aging. And there's other things we can do that will help decrease the aging process, but I digress. But as we age, our hormones shift and our muscles start to change, and our metabolism is trying to adapt to those changes, right? And that actually, those changes actually affect how our body stores and burns energy, okay? But there's always good news. Good news, good news, good news is that when you understand what's happening on the inside, because we always talk about what's going on the inside of our body, then we can actually start to stop fighting the physiology and start working with it. And you know that I talk a lot about how we can understand how our body is working and actually give it the tools to actually make miraculous changes on its own. We do not have to make up things. Our body knows how to do things if we give it the right tools. Okay. So today we're going to walk you through 3 of the biggest biological reasons weight loss feels harder after 40. And then we'll talk about what actually works. Okay. So you all know hormonal changes. Woo. I hear and see so many of my friends and colleagues, family members, especially after they turn 40, they're, going through what changes the menopausal changes, which involves estrogen. And most of the time when we think of menopause, we think just purely of reproductive cycles. So estrogen actually plays more in our body than just that. It actually helps with distribution and management of distribution of fat and management of metabolism. Okay. So when our estrogen level begins to shift during the perimenopausal and menopausal period, our fat distribution often changes. And again, like I said, I'm 47. So I'm noticing these things, and many other women have noticed that their weight usually starts to accumulate around their hips and thighs and even around the abdominal area. So we talked about too that the abdominal area, that fat is not just because we don't want that fat to not be there just for cosmetic reasons, even though that's always a beautiful thing, especially as spring and summer is upon us. But it's actually metabolically active tissue that can influence insulin sensitivity and inflammation. And I recently saw a video on, AI is always doing something crazy on here, on Facebook, and it was showing how, like, when the fat invades our body, especially around the midsection, and how you just see it start to, get larger and larger, and then actually goes in, especially around our liver, and how the fat then starts to infiltrate our liver and actually makes it to where our body does not actually function as it should. And that was like eye-opening to me. Like, I know I talk about it and see it, but to actually see it, with your AI eyes, like the virtual reality, but like a depiction of what's actually going on in your body. Now, of course, it doesn't happen that quickly, but you can even just imagine like seeing that. And it was like, wow, that is really going on. And that's why we always want to focus on what's going on the inside of our body and how we can actually decrease all those the negative things that can impact our body. So whenever I talk, I usually relate to women, but for my men out there, because some people, some patients come say, well, you don't work with men? Of course I do. We're all humans. We want everyone to be healthy and happy. So for men, it's not estrogen, but it's the testosterone that decreases and gradually declines with age. And of course, we know testosterone helps with maintaining muscle mass, and muscle plays a critical role in metabolic health. And it's not that men don't have estrogen or women don't have testosterone. Like, these two are just more the dominant in the body at the time. And then, of course, as things start to, as we age and things starts to decline in different ways, then our body starts to adjust in that. Okay, so when testosterone level decreases and muscle mass tends to decline, and it usually happens unless intentional steps are taken to maintain it. And that leads to the second major cause. So hormonal change is number one. And then the second major cause, which we already alluded to, is muscle loss. So after about age 30, adults begin to lose muscle mass slowly each decade. And this process is called sarcopenia. I know that's can be a mouthful, but it just means that, you're losing the muscle mass, and now the muscle is not just about strength or appearance. The muscle is about being metabolically active tissue. And muscle, it actually weighs more than fat, and it actually helps you to burn calories even at rest. So that's why we really emphasize for women, especially, that when they're trying to lose weight, they want to make sure that they're doing weight resistance and actually keeping that muscle mass up. So think of the muscle like as your metabolic engine. The more muscle you have, the more energy your body burns throughout the day, not just during the workout, but throughout the day. But when the muscle mass decreases, that metabolic engine becomes smaller, and that means the number of calories that your body naturally burns decreases as well. So if someone continues to eat exactly the same way as they did when they were in their 20s and 30s, which sometimes usually is not the best, and they're like, what's going on? But anyway, the weight gain can gradually come on simply because the metabolic rate has changed, okay? And then there's a third factor that becomes important with age, also, is insulin resistance. So we have the hormonal changes, then we have the muscle mass, muscle mass loss, and then we have insulin resistance. And insulin resistance can lead to more than just diabetes. Okay, so insulin is a hormone that regulates your blood sugars and energy storage. So I talked about insulin resistance more in detail. We'll go a little bit on high level today, but you can watch some of my other videos to actually see more about that as it relates to like diabetes and weight. But for insulin resistance, like when we eat like carbohydrates, and most people, that's why they think carbs are bad. We don't have good food or bad food. Look at previous videos. We just focus on that. But when we eat carbohydrates, the body releases insulin to move glucose from the bloodstream into the cells where it can be used as energy. Okay, so the insulin is like that key. So we want to make sure we have that. But over time, especially when the diet quality, sleep, stress, activity levels are not optimal, and again, as life goes on and we get more and more busy, that body, our body becomes less responsive to insulin. And this is what is called insulin resistance, okay? So when insulin resistance develops, the body has to produce more insulin to manage your blood sugar, okay? And higher levels of insulin actually makes fat storage easier and fat burning more difficult. So one of the tests that I usually have some patients look at is a fasting insulin level. Even if they don't have any type of known diabetes, even if their blood sugar looks normal, sometimes we'll look at that fasting insulin level, because if that fasting insulin level is starting to go higher and higher, that means that our body is starting to work harder trying to keep that glucose going into the cell and overcoming that insulin resistance. So it's that start of the insulin resistance that we're seeing as that fasting insulin level goes higher. So if you don't have that test, you may consider asking your doctor, or more likely work with me and I'll check it for you. But anyway, so with the higher insulin levels, there is one reason some people feel like their bodies are holding on to weight even more. And even when they're trying harder to lose weight, I mean, it just happens, okay, with the insulin level and start to become insulin resistance. So when you combine the hormonal shifts, the gradual weight loss, the increasing insulin resistance, the metabolic environment inside our body is changing, okay? And that's why the strategies that work when we're 25 may not work when we're 45, okay? So as we get older, we just want to actually start to adjust. So again, we want to hear what is what we need to do, okay? So it's not a personal failure. This is biological change, and that is important. So often in culture, it sends a message that someone is gaining weight or struggle to lose weight. It's a simply lack of discipline. But again, don't fall into that trap. We know that the message is really that our physiology is changing. Okay, so the human body is incredibly complex, which is more and more reason why I'm amazed at our creator, God, and how he, formed us just from the dirt, and breathed into us. And in my meditation, in my Bible and prayer meeting group that I do every morning with Arise and Shine. So shout out to Dr. Una and Arise and Shine and all the wonderful people on there and in that community. We were studying earlier this week about Genesis 1 and the creation story, and just about how he formed everything from nothing, pulled it all together. But anyway, our body is complex, but it's just, just amazing how we can see how things work together. And it's just wonderful. But so we have the hormones, we have the metabolism, we have sleep, we have stress and muscles. They all interact in ways that influence our body composition. So when those factors change, the strategy must change too. So instead of asking, why can I do what used to work? A better question would be, what does my body need now? So what does my body need now that is changing? Because when we approach health from curiosity instead of frustration, that's less stress, right? We really open the door to real transformation, to know that our body is not broken, it's just adapting, okay? And when we really understand those adaptations, you can make choices that support your biology instead of working against it, okay? So you're like, okay, Dr. Amanda, I knew it worked before. How do I find out what works now? All right. So when our body changes after 40, we're like, what works? What works? What works? So I just want to go through 4 things that you are especially important as we get older. And I always joke that people like tell me each decade of life, something else happens. And again, our body is aging, so we just want to adapt to those changes. Okay. So first, you knew it was coming, strength training. If we are losing muscle mass, and muscle mass naturally declines with age, we have to make sure we are consciously building and maintaining that muscle over time, because when we do that, it becomes the most powerful tool for our metabolic health when we actually continue to build our muscle mass. Okay. This doesn't mean you have to be a bodybuilder. Like I always use Arnold Schwarzenegger as a example, especially for women, but we want to actually build muscle. Okay. So even if there's 2 to 3 sessions per week of resistance training, it actually can improve your metabolic health. Okay. So that's anywhere between 12 to 40 minutes with these 2 to 3 times a week. And we want to focus on large muscle groups like squats, lunges, pushing movements, pulling movements. All these things make a difference. Okay. Each side, like balancing on each side. So making sure that each aspect of your body is getting that. So we don't always do two-legged movement. We also want to do some one-legged movement, one arm movements, things like that, to make sure we're getting that actual training throughout our body. Okay. So strength training tells your body these muscles are needed. Keep them. Don't try to get rid of my muscles. I need my muscles. All right. So when your body keeps muscle, it keeps the metabolism benefits. Okay. So we want to strength train 2 to 3 times a week, 12 to 40 minutes. And we don't want to do like, just little weights. Now, if you're starting out, of course, you can do like 2 to 3 pounds, but we want to like actually, burn. We want to burn. We want to burn. We want to actually feel that muscle working. We want to actually, I know this may sound bad, but we want to like tear the muscles so they can actually regrow and repair and build. Okay. But when we do the strength training, we want to make sure in turn we actually help to promote the growth. So we have to talk about the second important thing is adequate amount of protein. And for those that know Dr. Amanda, when I say protein, I'm talking about whole plant foods, right? Because when we talk about the whole food, it actually helps our body overall, okay? So we don't want to just look at animal-based proteins because that has a lot of fat and cholesterol. We want to look at the whole food. So plant foods actually support our metabolic health. I want to say a bit better because it actually helps reduce inflammation, not cause more inflammation. Okay. So many people still believe you can't get enough protein from plants. And in reality, plant foods provide both protein and fiber, which is very good for blood sugar control and satiety. So we want to actually feel full and not actually want to go in more and more food. Okay. So what are some good plant-based protein sources? Are lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, edamame, and other soy foods like tofu and tempeh. And when I say soy foods, sometimes people are like concerned, especially if they have like cancers in their family, breast cancers. But when you actually eat whole plant foods, it actually been shown that this soy does not actually increase your risk for those type of cancers. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about the manufactured foods, but if you eat a whole soy foods, then it's okay. So then other plant-based proteins would be like quinoa, seeds like chia seeds, hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, natural nut butters without added sugar and added salt. So you can get a lot of protein through plants. Okay. So legumes in particular are very powerful because they contain protein and fiber and slow digesting carbohydrates, which stabilize the blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity. Because remember, we talked about insulin resistance. So we want to improve our insulin sensitivity. And so, especially for adults over 40, aiming to include a protein source at each meal can help you to preserve your muscles while supporting your metabolic health and getting in a lot of fiber with that protein. So like 30 grams of fiber a day, which again, I talk a lot about how we are fiber deficient in the US. So we want to get in more fiber. So what would this look like? So for example, we can have oats with flaxseed or chia seeds and nuts. Our lunch can include large leafy greens, salads with chickpeas or lentils. And the dinner can include beans, tofu, or tempeh. Tempeh is very good. You just have to marinate it good. And tempeh is like a whole soybean like patty. As people are like, what is tempeh? So it's less processed than tofu, okay? And then make sure you're adding in veggies and whole grains to that dinner so you actually feel full. So when protein is paired with resistance training, the body receives the signal it needs to maintain that muscle mass. And that's what we want. We want to maintain that muscle mass, okay? And then third, so we have, we want to make sure that we are getting in the protein. We want to make sure we're doing the strength training. And then third, we want to make sure that we are sleeping well. Don't underestimate sleep. Sleep is powerful. And I just had a colleague that wrote a book about sleep. And I have to post it when she actually has it out and it's available to purchase. But how important sleep is, because we underestimate sleep, and especially when we talk about weight and metabolism. But sleep actually affects hormones that regulate hunger and satiety. So when people are sleep deprived, their level of hunger hormone, the ghrelin, actually increases. So we want to eat more. And just think about, especially for my moms out there, when you're like, your baby's up all night or your toddler's up all night, and then you're like the next day, like you're eating and you're eating, because that ghrelin is increased while your leptin, the one that actually signals that you're full, actually decreases. And then, and when we have like a diagnosis of obesity, those levels are also off. So, like our brain does not actually signal that we're full, but it's always hungry. So, again, sleep actually can help improve that. So, sleep deprivation also increases our like cortisol and worsens our insulin resistance. And again, we want our insulin, worsens our insulin sensitivity. So that makes our insulin resistance worse. So we want to make sure that we are doing things that help with decreasing insulin resistance. Okay. So poor sleep can make the body biologically primed to store more energy. And we don't want to store energy. We want to burn energy. We want to burn that energy. Okay. So prioritizing consistent restorative sleep is not a luxury anymore. We can't pull those reminders. It is a metabolic strategy. Okay. So we want to make sure that we are getting that sleep that we need. And 7 to 9 hours is what's recommended for adults. For me, sometimes that more on that 9 hour mark is more beneficial. But you have to see for yourself. And again, you can work with a lifestyle medicine specialist to actually make sure that you're getting that right amount of sleep. Okay. And then we go on to the fourth thing. So let's review. So strength training, plant-based proteins, making sure you sleep well. And then the last thing would be stress management. Okay. So chronic stress elevates cortisol. I have to be very careful with that. And when cortisol remains elevated for long periods of time, it once again promotes fat storage, and particularly where we don't want it, in that midsection, that abdominal area. Okay. So stress also influences our behaviors, such as our sleep patterns, eating patterns, and physical activity. So learning ways to regulate your stress, whether through physical activities, time outdoors, prayer and meditation, our meaningful connection with others, can support your metabolic health. Okay. And when these pillars are addressed together, strength, nutrition, sleep, and stress, the body begins to respond differently. How about that? So we're all working together. We're not fighting against our body. You're not fighting against the physiology, and you start to see results again, because you're starting to give your body the tool that it needs to actually start to see that number on the scale change, for you to feel better, to have more energy there. Okay. So if you are ready to take a deeper approach to your health, one that looks like you are getting your nutrition, your metabolism, habits, and long-term goals met, don't forget, I'm here, Dr. Amanda with Atkins Enlightenment Lifestyle Medicine. You can schedule an appointment with me through our virtual lifestyle medicine practice. And I work with patients around multiple states to help them prevent and reverse chronic diseases through nutrition, movement, and sleep and stress management, and make sustainable lifestyle changes. So as those decades come on, we are adding more life to our years. Okay. So you can schedule your appointment with me, and it's very easy. Just go to www.dramandamd.com. So that's like dramandamd.com. And you can book your appointment. Again, we are licensed in 10 states. And if we're not licensed in your state, send us a message. We'll see what we can do for you anyway. Okay. All right. So now let's imagine for a moment. We have to actually look at this. We want to actually see where we're going. So imagine understanding exactly how your body responds to food, activity, sleep, and stress. Imagine having a clear strategy for your body at this stage of life, and you're waking up with more energy, you're feeling stronger, you know that the choices you're making is supporting your long-term health, you're working with your body instead of fighting it. And the truth is that your body was designed, again, miraculously, to heal, to adapt, and to thrive, but only with the right conditions. Again, the goal is not perfection. We just want to align with our body, with our healthy habits, and the biology that God designed within us. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And when that alignment happens, health becomes possible again. So again, if this message resonates with you and you want to feel a little bit more better and a little bit more better, a little bit better, I encourage you to share this video, tag someone that needs to hear it, and make this the most powerful step towards change and simply understanding what's happening inside your body. All right. So blessing and health to y'all. Have a great Friday, and I look forward to seeing you next time.